Everybody, thanks so much for coming out. It's great to see so many people on a beautiful sunny, rare, sunny Sunday afternoon. And it's also great to see familiar faces and new faces here. I was thinking I'd just say a couple of words of introduction. For those who don't know me, my name is Katie. My husband Jules and I are sort of the proprietors of the house, you could say. And the church, we call it the Church Street House, and our mission with the house is essentially to grow the lay communion of the church, the local lay communion, to deepen our relationships with one another, and to learn to enact our agency as lay Catholics in the mission of the church. And we find increasingly that the better we get to know each other as persons, the more naturally that flows, because all of a sudden you find areas that click and so on. And I thought, just as a quick introduction, when I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking about a meme, or I don't know if it's a meme or a sketch or whatever, that I came across in Jody Lenz's Instagram account this week. Jody's Instagram is a great follow for all of you. She's just great at giving these little glimpses of beauty and meaning and family life and homesteading, and it's wonderful. But she put up a little skit or something that came up from the internet, and it was, what if adults could get to be friends like children? And it showed these two middle-aged women coming up to each other, and they've got backpacks on. They're like, "Hey, my name is Katie. I want to see how high I can get." Wow, that's awesome. And I thought, that's all it takes for children. And then I think we're supposed to be like children, and I think particularly in the idea of this eager openness toward one another. What can you do? What do you have? And that is one of the things that we love to do here. We love to showcase each other's gifts and charisms, and we love to share what it is that we have to give. So, like Miranda organized an artist's retreat last weekend. So we had, all people in the area who love art. So they could come here, not only get this great content from Bill Donahue, but get to know each other better. Like, oh, you're right in my neighborhood, and you're also a faithful Catholic, and you love art. Hey, let's be friends. It's sort of like that. And I have a priest friend who's a kind of also a mentor, and one of the things that he said to me when he's been listening to me complain about various problems in the church for 20 years, and he said, and then he was a big factor in our getting this house and starting our magazine. We have a magazine, it's here. If you're not subscribing, you might like to. This is another way of getting to know each other better, is through our magazine. But he said to me lately, it's very clear that you and Jules have a mission, and your mission is to create space so that the mission of the church can happen, can take place. So that's how I really felt last week during the artist retreat. I thought this mission of the church that artists have, I don't have it because I'm not an artist, but it can happen here because we created a space. And similarly, we're hoping, down the road, it's already starting a little bit with musical things, we're hoping eventually the intellectual life of the church, because that's my husband and my particular interest. Anyway, that place where people who also have that, want that, can find each other and interact with each other, learn from each other. So I'm super grateful that we have right in our midst one of our, most constant and faithful members of the local fold, so to speak, who also has a PhD. He first of all studied theology as a seminarian, I think, for a time before he discerned out of seminary. He has a PhD in psychology, and he's a professor, an online professor of psychology. He's been a counselor for many years, so he has various perspectives that he can bring to this topic that's of great interest to all of us. So thank you, Tim, for stepping up, and thank you all for opening up to hear what he has to say.
Thanks, Katie. I'm very excited to share this topic today with you, and I want to thank Katie and Jules for opening up the Church Street House to allow presentations like this to happen. And this talk today is about the psychology of holiness, which is kind of a weird crossover between psychology and faith. Typically, when we think about psychology, we're not necessarily thinking about God very much, right? But I think that there's a lot of opportunity for integration between philosophy, theology, and psychology. So that's what I'd like to share with you today. But I don't want to keep it at the theoretical level because that'll get real boring real quick and you'll get your afternoon nap. So we're going to avoid that. And I'm going to offer some practical tips from the field of psychology that I think are particularly helpful for developing into wholly integrated and flourishing individuals. So that's what the talk's going to be about. Now, just as a way of kind of establishing some professional expertise, my background originally, I wanted to be a farmer. And I wasn't even going to go to school. I was going to play in the dirt all day and take care of animals, and I was going to be pretty happy doing that. Still haven't given that up completely. But I got interested in kind of deepening my faith and found my way into seminary formation to be a Catholic priest. I took philosophy for 4 years, so I got a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. And then I went on to theology, I studied theology, got a Master's of Arts in Theology, and then I discerned out of seminary. And if that wasn't enough gluttonous, kind of like desire for punishment, I mean a glutton for punishment, I decided to go on and get a doctorate in psychology. So it was something like 11 or 12 years of higher education that I ended up with, and a lot of student debt. But the reason I did all that was so that I could know the human person as deeply as possible through the three wisdom traditions of the world. Wouldn't say of the church necessarily, but so I got that philosophical background so I could understand human beings through the lens of reasoning. Then that theological background to understand the top-down gifts from God that we have in the deposit of faith, and then in order to get the psychological scientific part, I went on to get the doctorate in psychology. So that's not to boast, it's just to say, like, I think it takes a lot of learning to really know the human person top down, bottom up, and inside out. So that was my goal. And so I went to Divine Mercy University in Virginia, and they're a faith integrated psychology program. So it meshed nicely with seminary. And then went to a number of faith integrated psychology sites that were doing faith integration with clients around the country. So that was cool. And then finally landed here and got licensed and started Psychogenesis Psychological Services. So this is my private practice. And basically I see people for therapy. I do diagnosis and assessment, workshops, free talks like this one, and so that's kind of a new thing, and feel free to check it out. I'm going to try to put some resources online if you're interested in faith integrated psychology. And then, I thought it'd be good to just show you a picture of the Local Fold website as well, while I was plugging my own website. Be unbiased here. No, it's a great, I think there's just a really great community building, mostly in person, but the little community online is really starting to pick up too. Like there's a lot of web activity, like we'll just post stuff that we're interested in, and it's like protected from the outside troll culture of like Facebook and Twitter and stuff. And it's just like this little community that we have going, so it's really neat. And then last, just recently I started as an assistant professor of psychology at St. Mary's University of Minnesota, where we're building a faith-integrated psychology curriculum for master's level students. And it's an online program, so basically anywhere in the United States you can study to get a master's in psychology and then go out and practice. So that's the current work I'm doing, and part of the research that's going into this presentation too. So if you're ever interested in potentially pursuing psychology, definitely let me know. I got some brochures over in the table over there. So, all right, enough advertising. Last thing, there's going to be 2 other talks soon for the kayak group, so the young adults of Chester County. I'm going to be doing a talk for them soon, social intelligence and saints, and then at St. Mary Magdalene I'm going to give a talk on the psychology of the sacraments. So I'm going to give a lot more talks in the local area. And then last thing, I promise, okay. We have the St. Patrick's Day party coming up. So it's just going to be like a fun time of dancing, singing, and eating Irish food. So feel free to check it out. There's a poster up over there on the wall there. So, okay. So the human person is Have you ever had baklava before?
Yeah.
Okay, I love baklava. It's just like layers of phyllo dough infused with orange syrup, and there's like this nutty goodness in the bottom. And when you bite into it, it's just like an explosion of flavor. So I really love baklava. I think the human person's a little bit like baklava. We have different layers to us, different layers of goodness. And each of those layers has to resonate, kind of have this infused with orange syrup in order for us to flourish. So we're created, we're fallen and redeemed. That's kind of our story. We're a body-soul unity. So we're not just a body, we're not just a soul, there's a composite element to it. We're interpersonally relational. We need other people in order to flourish. We're fulfilled in virtue and through vocation. And we also have this rational part of us, kind of the thoughts and cognitions that we have. And there's also an emotional part of us. It's not either or, like it actually is both. We're volitional and free, meaning that we get to choose and we have freedom to choose. We have agency. And finally, we have our basic senses, kind of our biological layer, sensation, perception, and cognition. All of those things have to resonate with each other for us to flourish. And in my opinion, I think that flourishing and holiness go hand in hand. It's flourishing on this side of death, and it's holiness in the next life. So we can suffer and still flourish. We can be subject to all of the effects of sin and darkness, and at the same time flourish. But that is a pretty difficult thing to actually manage in reality, right? Like, life is hard, and people are crazy. So basically, we want to look at this from different lenses. We have the lens of theology that gives us the top, the kind of like crust on the phyllo dough of the baklava of humanity. And then we have the nutty goodness of science that informs the things that we know from divine revelation. So all of the scientific data out there ought to really support the things that we know that God has handed on to us. There's no reason why faith and science can't get along. And so I went through all those 12 years of education because I needed to know that with detail. And so just kind of take it on faith and don't do 12 years of education just to find that out. So just kind of putting all of those things together in a nice little schema here. We have our basic goodness and dignity right at the core of who we are, the image of God imprinted on our souls. And around that, we have all of these human aspects of ourselves, our ability to reason, our freedom, our sensory perception and cognition, our emotions. And then all of that is supported by vocation and virtue. So we're kind of surrounded by the habits that inform our lives that basically influence our emotions and thoughts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive deeper into each of these different points so you can see what are the common factors in life that help you flourish. Like what actually scientifically leads to holiness. It's a tall task, but I think there's something there. And so just kind of dive in here. The first thing we really want to know is what is our story? And the first thing to know about that is that we're created. We're created by God with goodness and dignity. And we're created to be a gift of love to each other. In fact, if we look at human beings really closely, it's really obvious to see that we need another person to mirror back to us in order for us to understand ourselves. And when we don't have that social mirroring, we quickly become isolated, self-consumed, and have difficulty functioning. So there's this kind of unity within our own person. We're created with an intention in mind. And of course we have communion with God as well. It's not just with other people, we're in communion with God, and we're called to flourishing. Now, kind of on a very deep level, we need, so like attachment is when our needs are met. If you're securely attached with someone, that means that the things that you are needing are being met at the same time. But we can also be insecurely attached to someone. So if I am not getting my needs met, pretty quickly I'll start to become anxious or avoidant of the other person. And we also have to have a secure attachment with God. So we need this stronger, wiser other who is there for us when we get hurt or when we need a secure base. So for a minute, if you feel comfortable just closing your eyes, I want you to just imagine that someone that you're really close to, someone who's never really let you down, maybe a mentor, a coach, a grandparent, just imagine that person just walked into the room and sat down next to you. Like in vivid detail, just imagine this person sitting next to you. Can you kind of feel your body calm down a little bit? When we're in the presence of those who are a secure attachment to us, we become more regulated. Feel free to sit in that for a moment. Yeah, so you can just kind of feel your heart rate slow down, nervous system comes into balance. Feel free to come back out of that whenever you're ready. And for a lot of us, we have these wounds though. We don't necessarily have someone that we can securely attach to. And that's where an ideal parent figure can come in handy. And what better ideal parent figure than God? Can you do that same exercise that you just did with God too? Like maybe the Divine Mercy image really speaks to you. Maybe you feel particularly close to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Can you connect and just kind of imagine them in vivid detail, maybe imagine playing with them? That's that original created goodness that we're called to. Thank you, Faustina. Would you like an apple? So, of course, this created part of us is subject to fallenness, though. In this life, we're subject to disorders and trials, and so whether it's mental health disorders or just like the consequences of sin. But the good thing is that goodness is foundational and evil is not. Evil doesn't have the last say. And this is part of our story, that even though that original goodness is broken by fallenness, we're able to struggle, overcome mental health illnesses, overcome sin, overcome ignorance, and get to a point where we're able to flourish. So one thing that I think we often do is prevent ourselves from really understanding the depth of our fallenness. And often, if you start going down the route of imagining doing something wrong, you probably put a stop on that pretty quick. You don't want to think of yourself as a fallen person. But what I'd like to suggest as a psychological tip is that it's actually really helpful to fully understand our fallenness. Not to actually go out and act it out, but to realize what evil we're capable of. Because if we don't really understand what evil we're capable of, it's going to be a lot harder to prevent that evil from happening. And we might not realize our full capacity as human beings, because our capacity for evil is equal to our capacity for good. I think of St. Paul when I think of this exact point. St. Paul persecuted the Christians intensely, and he had a great capacity to do that. And then after his conversion, he channeled all of that energy that he was using for evil into spreading the good of the gospel. And so it might be a hard thing to kind of come to grips with, but if you're able to recognize what evil you're capable of, you'll likewise be able to realize what good you're capable of. And I think there's a lot of hope in that, because if you're someone who's been a top-notch sinner, you can also be a top-notch saint. And that's great. So I hope that when you take things to the confessional, or you take things to your family or friends and kind of a way of reconciling with them, that you begin to recognize that like God has given you a great capacity, and you're capable of an awful lot. And like, who knows what upper limit there is to that capability. So, it's good to have a wise guide. So, spiritual director, a therapist, someone who can walk you through that journey of fallenness that you've been on and help you realize what good you're capable of. So that's the second part of our story. And the result of that exploration of your fallenness is that you can come out a resurrected being on the other end. Of course, resurrection in the final sense, but also resurrection in the here and now flourishing sense. Have you ever been through a really difficult time or some type of struggle? Maybe you had a difficult test that you were trying to undergo, and then you come out and you feel like, wow, I did all of that. I can't believe I got through that. Well, that's what I'm talking about in the sense of being a resurrected being in some way. That we're not only capable of eternal happiness and beatitude with God, but there's kind of this natural grace and virtue that we can grow in. And that's our vocation. So our vocation is about redeeming the immediate things in your surroundings. So redeeming yourself, kind of going through this process of redemption yourself through the grace of God, helping your family become more fully integrated and alive. And so I think for a psychological tip when it comes to exploring our redeemed self, it's like, I can't think of anything in the entire universe that's more complex than the human mind. Like, there's nothing that compares to the 6 centimeters, cubic centimeters of brain that we have, and then the accompanying body that we have with that. And so I think that one of the things that you can do is just begin to appreciate your own goodness. Begin to come to grips with the fact that you might be even greater than you realize. And once again, this is something that a wise guy can be helpful for. Going back to that secure attachment figure, like maybe that's your therapist, maybe that's a wise mentor in your life. But to find someone who can help mirror back your own goodness and show you what you're capable of. So we're also a body-soul unity. Of course, we have human dignity, but like, what does it actually mean to be a body-soul unity? So I think there's a lot of people who will say, okay, well, like on one hand, we have the choice to be a very rigid person. Like we can do things in a very set way. This is like kind of the conservative way in some way, like to have things ordered and predictable and rigid. And then there's the other side, which is kind of the personality trait of openness. And now, if you go with the openness way, the approach of being very open to reality, you risk getting hurt. So this is more like a liberal attitude, for instance. So just kind of think about the right and left. And so there's mental health disorders at both extremes. And so what do you do with that? Like, if we're stuck between rigidity and openness, and those are the only two options, like, where is the integration of that? Well, our bodies are actually hierarchically integrated. So we have a central nervous system, the brain, that gives us reasoning from the top down. It kind of gives us commands, almost like a captain at the helm of a ship. And at the bottom, we have our sensory organs that give us all this data that we can't sort out. It's like too much information. And so rather than going too far in the direction of openness or too far in the direction of rigidity, we can actually have this sense of like we need both. There needs to be an integration. So it's kind of hard to keep the thread here, but basically, think about how your family's organized. There's a bunch of different members of your family, and they all have their different strengths and weaknesses. Well, in the same way, our body is kind of like the same situation. Like our senses all have to work together, and we need the openness of our eyes, and we need the rigidity of our bones in order to have structure. So, like if I were to give a tip, basically you want to be able to flexibly balance between rigidity and openness. For example, at times we're going to more or less be unaware of our emotions. Like maybe they're too much to handle. That's a time when we want more openness. And so let's say that I feel intense anxiety about something. Well, if I'm rigid about it, it's probably going to make me more anxious. But if I'm kind of taking this integrated approach and paying attention to my whole body, I can say, okay, let me sit with that anxiety and just feel it in this moment. And maybe it's really intense. But if I'm going back to God, if I'm going back to my secure attachment figure, someone who can always be there for me, you're going to have that regulating effect again, just like we did a few minutes ago. So our body and our mind are best integrated when we're in connection with other people, and we're able to integrate both openness and rigidity. So that's a little abstract, but I think the body soul, it's very difficult to find that integration between body and soul. Do you have a question?
I just want to say, I just want to see if I can process this for
Sure,
myself.
yeah.
So you're basically saying that it's a both and.
It is a both and.
It's not an
Yeah.
either or.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that's, to me, my personal experience, my whole experience with God is that it's just so big
Mm-hmm.
that, it's two conflicting things can exist in the same space.
Yeah.
Like grief and happiness.
Yeah, it's about holding tension. Can we hold the tension
And that's
between two
very hard
extremes? Yeah.
It's very hard to do by yourself, and it's very hard. And so, I try to do that a lot, is try and think of the both and.
Yeah, and that's like a very Catholic move to do that too. It's also a secure attachment move. Like when kids, if you've ever been around kids for very long, you'll notice that they'll go out and explore, and they'll feel more or less safe for a while. But then maybe they get a boo-boo, maybe something scary comes into the room, and they come right back to their parent. So there's this kind of attachment cycle that happens. Like babies. Babies love to play peekaboo. Why do they love to play peekaboo? Well, they don't have what's called object permanence yet. So if you cover up your face, they think your face doesn't exist. Okay? It's like materializes right in front of you. Like, whoa. So funny. Well, adults don't have, like, if you have an insecure attachment with people, you don't necessarily have emotional object permanence. So if you get in an argument with someone, suddenly all the positive emotions that tell you the relationship exists aren't there anymore. And so when you get in an argument and then make up, it's like emotional peekaboo. It's like, oh, you don't like me anymore. Like our relationship isn't here. Oh wait, we're over our argument. Peekaboo, I'm back. So in that way, it's like if we want to have like this secure attachment with God, secure attachment with each other, it's important to be able to like hold the tension when we're in times of argument, to sit with that, to self-regulate, to go back to that secure base, and then when we're in times of closeness, to savor that and remember it. So yeah, like this back and forth. Like maybe you go to a cocktail party with your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend. You almost always notice like people split up as soon as they walk in the door. Like one goes to one side of the room, the other goes to the other side of the room. But as the conversation gets a little awkward, or maybe you say something a little strange, or maybe your feet are hurting and it's hard to stand for too long, you go back to each other. So just like kids going out and exploring and getting a boo-boo, adults do the same thing. Like we go out, we might get a little beat up socially, and then we come back to each other, to our secure base. And that's good and natural. Maybe you might have heard of mindfulness before, a little bit. Love mindfulness. Mindfulness is just like, here in the present moment, I'm okay, I can appreciate what's in front of me. That's a little bit of like a Buddhist approach to life, like detachment from things that can hurt me, and attention to what I'm focusing on in the moment. And that's done wonders for people. But I think the difference between kind of like a Buddhist integrated version of psychology and a Catholic faith integrated version of psychology is that we're focused on something. It's not just blankness. We're focused on a person. So at the center of this idea of mindfulness or attentiveness is God. And so if we're able to focus on God as our secure attachment, then we're even more regulated than if we're just kind of like focused on the present moment in some way. So maybe your prayer can be a bit abstract or dry sometimes. I challenge you to use your imagination and like mindfully focus on God himself. Like no presumptions, no distractions, just like person to person, completely focused on each other. And yeah, so it's kind of like marriage too. Vocation is something that I think is a great buzzword. It's great in the sense that I think all of us are becoming more aware of the importance of vocation. It's a buzzword in the sense that I don't think we necessarily take the time to understand it with depth. Because when we think of vocation, we'll think of like calling to the priesthood or religious life, calling to marriage, blessed single life. But I think there's a kind of depth there that we often miss, which is that our vocation is a call to go on the same journey as Christ within our current context. So chances are that there's some kind of traumatic or hellish problem in your life. And chances are that you're not quite ready to go there yet. and what our vocation is basically like, what would Christ do in that situation? Like if Christ were in your exact context, with your exact relationships and exact resources, like what would he do? And for some of you, that's like a calling to marriage. And for some of you, that's like a calling to religious life or vocational life, or religious life. So no matter what our calling is, we're called to go into whatever traumatic, hellish thing is going on in our lives, and then come out the other end as, once again, that resurrected being. So we can go through conflict, we can set firm boundaries, we can have the difficult conversations with our coworkers that we might need to, or our boss. And if you're willing to do that with a wise guide, then you can come out the other end, once again, kind of transforming your community. And to me, that's what vocation is. It's a call to adventure. And I love Dante's Divine Comedy. I don't know if you've read Dante's Divine Comedy or read about it, the Divine Comedy. But basically, he starts with a journey into hell. He's midway on the journey of his life, and he gets lost in the woods, like we all do. And Virgil, a poet, appears to him. And Virgil is his guide. So Virgil takes him through all the layers of hell, all the way to the devil himself. And he's, at no point is he kind of mired in the same things that he's seeing these poor souls in. So he doesn't get stuck in a swamp somewhere or frozen in ice like all the people in hell. His wise guide is able to take him through hell without him getting stuck there. And that's the same thing that wise guides, whether therapists, spiritual directors, or mentors, can do. They can take you to hell and back without you getting stuck there. They can keep you in the secure attachment zone so that you don't get mired in sin or stuck in addiction or something like that. The brain, when we're traumatized by something, those memories are stored in brain cells. And our brains build this little wall around those cells. This is crazy. I can't remember the technical neurological term for it, but basically it makes it very difficult for those neurons to fire in a way that you can consciously be aware of those memories again. So what therapy can do, or what spiritual direction can sometimes do, is help you go back to that neurological version of hell that is your traumatic memories, and break down that wall so that you're able to re-access those memories and reintegrate them into your life. So if that's the neurological version of hell, we need a neurological version of Christ to journey with us and help us overcome and integrate our past traumas. And that can be an incredibly difficult journey. But if you have a good wise guide, they're going to keep you from getting re-stuck in that trauma and kind of re-traumatized in some way. So that's kind of crazy. But I think that's one area where faith integration can really come in handy. And we do it through these habits that we layer into our lives over time. It's funny, we all have kind of like things that we focus on. Like, for example, you probably tuned out the fact that there's some background noise going on. Like, there's kids playing upstairs. I don't hear anything outside right now, but like, we naturally tune those things out. And we focus on the things that are most important to us. And the things that we tune out can often be like the wrong things. We can focus on the wrong things and the right things. And just to set this up, like, have you also ever noticed how difficult it is to learn like a new instrument or a new language, like ride a bicycle for the first time? Like, all of those things, it takes a lot of effort and like a lot of our prefrontal cortex. But as we habituate that, it goes to a deeper part of our brain. And suddenly it's easy to play the piano. We can do it second nature without thinking about it. We're focused on the right thing. Now, imagine if you made a mistake as you were learning to play piano. But because it's unconscious now, you're more or less unconsciously playing piano or speaking a new language, you don't even notice that you're making that mistake anymore. Like, it's integrated into your habits. So with virtues, like, the virtues are the habits that we've integrated properly. But vices are the things that we're kind of stuck in, that we haven't, like, we encoded the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like it's a pattern that we can't quite, we might not be consciously aware of, but it's causing a problem in our lives. So what we want to try to do is develop virtue in a way that that we're encoding the right information at the right time. And let's take the virtue of courage, for example. Let's say you're having a really difficult time overcoming some anxiety or depression in your life. Well, what you want to do is voluntarily expose yourself to adversity. That's a definition of resilience. So voluntary exposure to adversity builds resilience. It's the opposite of trauma. Trauma is involuntary exposure to adversity in an unmeasured way. So if we get the right dose of difficulty, we get stronger and more virtuous, and we encode information in the right way. We encode our habits in the right way. And if we're involuntarily exposed to something, or it's kind of bigger than we can handle, that's when it becomes a traumatic event. So there's actually no difference between a traumatic event and a event that leads to virtue, other than the amount of it and our attitude toward it. So that's kind of a crazy thing to think about. That's why you can have people that can run into burning buildings and save people and come out stronger, and other people who can run into the same burning building and come out traumatized. Is it too much to handle? Do my coping resources allow me to handle this, or is it kind of overwhelming me in some way? And chances are, for you in your lives right now, there's something that is overwhelming your defenses. Maybe it's something that you don't have much control over. It's unmeasured. And maybe there's something in your life that you're choosing voluntarily that's difficult. Like, you're shouldering a burden that's difficult to bear. So what a wise guide can do is help you find the right amount of difficulty to maximize your virtue. I think that's one of the real values of the spiritual director, is to help you determine like what level of difficulty is right for you. So it doesn't have to be like total anxiety. It doesn't have to be like completely easy life. Like, we're at our best when it's just the right amount. We're able to bear the cross that God has given us. So. I've already touched a lot on the fact that we're interpersonally relational. Like we need family, friends, community, we need social engagement with others. They did an experiment with mice where they basically gave mice everything that they needed in order to survive within their cages. But they also gave them like an addictive substance like alcohol. And what they noticed is that the mice who consumed alcohol in isolation formed an addiction, roughly 20% of them. The mice who were socially engaged or reintroduced to their social context were able to heal from their addictions. So just like our secure attachment figure can be incredibly regulating to us, so too can our social engagement with others be regulating to us. We don't need addiction to cope with difficulty when we have people surrounding us who support us and love us. And so part of our embeddedness in our families, friends, and communities is social support. The nervous system, for example, we have fight, flight, and freeze, right? So it's the three motor processes that we can engage in when we're faced with threat. I can either move forward to fight, I can move backward to flee, or I can stay in place and freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. But there's another system that's regulated. That's the dysregulated version we've all heard about for some reason. But the regulated version is the social engagement system. It's rest and digest, feed and breathe. So between fight or flight, which are elevated states, and freeze, which is a down-regulated state, is social engagement. It's the balance between the two. So our nervous systems are happiest when we're in that balanced state, when we're not in fight, flight, or freeze. When you're having a difficult conversation with someone and trying to stay empathetic and at the same time assert yourself, it's very easy to go into fight, flight, or freeze. What it's most difficult to do is stay in the social engagement system that allows us to continue to feel okay and still solve the problem. Now, how do you think you best stay in the social engagement zone? Like, what's one way you think that might happen? Any guesses?
Political debate.
Political debate. That regulates me. Like, everyone could be losing their minds.
I love that.
You're kidding.
Yeah, right. That's one area that's really susceptible to fight, flight, and freeze right now. Yeah. So imagine, I was outside a church one time, and there was these protesters outside the church. They had put red paint all over themselves, and they were yelling obscenities through a megaphone. And I didn't know at the time, but the bishop had instructed everyone not to go near them. But I didn't know that, so I walked right up to them. That's social engagement, right? So anyway, I stood there, and it was very difficult to do, but I just stayed in social engagement the entire time. I mirrored back what I was hearing. I talked about the feeling words that I heard them kind of expressing. You're feeling angry right now, like you're having you have a lot to say about the Catholic Church, that kind of thing. And at first, like, she might as well still have been on the megaphone. Like, she was still yelling, still saying obscenities. And then when I didn't react that way with fight, flight, or freeze, suddenly she started to become more regulated. And she started speaking in a normal tone, looked a little sheepish. And then we had a really good conversation. And the next time I was at like a March for Life in the same area, and she showed up counter-protesting, and she saw me, and I walked right up to her, and we had this friendly conversation. And I think she was like a little bit like unsure how the people around her were going to react. Like, she's supposed to be there protesting and causing a scene, and but we had a good conversation again. And it's like when we regulate and we stay regulated, then we co-regulate with others as well. So that's part of our personhood. Like these masks, that's like the Greek persona. So that you put on this mask, and what you project outwardly to others is what they imagine you to be. So we can mirror back what we see other people to be, just like in that situation. a more saintly example than mine, Mother Teresa was going around begging for food for an orphanage that she was involved with. And so she goes into this bakery, and the baker just spits full on her face. Like, definitely a fight response, right? And rather than engaging in fight, flight, or freeze, Mother Teresa just looks the guy straight in the eye and says, well, that was for me. Now how about some bread for my orphans? It's like, there's the rest and digest, feed and breed response. And I think that's also what we mean by turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek doesn't mean freeze. It means social engagement. I'm going to stay engaged with you and mirror back your aggression so that you can see what it means to be interpersonally relational with others. So. And then we have the sensory, perceptual, cognitive part of us. This is a neuron. I just thought it looked cool. Don't worry.
No quiz later.
No quiz later, yeah. So our nervous system's kind of like a tree. There's branches at the ends. Like, we're kind of designed like a tree. We have this trunk that's like the central nervous system, and then the leaves are kind of like the branches. In fact, the way people depict trees in various cultures is one way you can kind of predict the way they see the human nervous system. So if I asked you to draw a tree, it would tell me a lot about your nervous system as well. Crazy. It's a psychology trick. Basically, so it's really important for us to be able to gather information, just like a tree gathers in nutrients or reacts to its environment in several ways. And basically neurons that fire together, so if part of our brain fires, it wires to the other parts of the brain that fire as well. So neurologically, we can form these really strong connections between the branches of our nervous system. So if you've been exposed to trauma, and that can affect the way you sense reality or you perceive reality, and the neurons are going to wire in such a way that it prepares you for that same kind of trauma in the future. And so part of the process of healing from trauma might be recalibrating to your environment that is less traumatic. And that could take time. Maybe you've been exposed to some kind of addiction, like process addiction, internet, very, very common these days. So those neurons are going to wire together in the same kind of way. Like, there's going to be reward pathways that form. It can take a lot to change our nervous system and change our perception. But kind of think of it this way: like, we're organic beings. We're much more akin to trees than we are to like computers that just download information. We need time to grow. We need time to adapt. We need to be pruned in the right way. And so be patient with yourself. Give yourself the ability to slowly grow into the person that you want to become. One way of doing this, I think, is to try to develop, I have specific things I'm going to summarize at the end, so I'm going to make sure I get this right. The story you tell is going to color your experience, and so if you're telling yourself a very traumatized story because you have been traumatized, it's going to take some effort to tell a different story, a more colorful, integrated story. Instead of imagining yourself to be this other person that you want to be, you can actually begin telling yourself, no, I can become that person. I can become this integrated whole person again that isn't kind of stuck in my own brokenness. And that's a very difficult thing to do. But basically, I would say that, if you're depressed, you actually see more black and white in your environment than you do if you're not depressed. If you're not depressed, you see more color. This is one way that psychologists measure whether you're depressed or not. So it's not just the story you begin telling yourself, I can go on the journey of Christ, I can become this better person and be securely attached to people. That's going to change the way you actually perceive reality. So instead of the world being so dark and kind of muted all the time, life can actually be much more vibrant and interesting when you're voluntarily engaging with it in a measured way. So once again, going back to that attachment to God can really make a difference. I'm going to keep track of time here. We're pretty close to the end, but I just want to say one thing about emotion. Have you ever thought about the purpose of negative emotion? Any ideas why we have negative emotion?
Is it to protect you, maybe?
Yeah, protect you from threat, ultimately to protect you from death. So going back to fight, flight, or freeze, we need negative emotion to prevent bad things from happening. And so you might have thought of emotion as something to be, like negative emotion as something to be wiped out. Like I just have to get rid of any negative emotion. But someone who's like flourishing and integrated realizes that negative emotion is really necessary. And so you can develop it. It's not that we're trying to get rid of it or make those emotions go away. It's finding a way to integrate that into who you are so that you can have a broader experience of life. Like you can have greater ups and greater downs. And so my tip for that is just like express emotion fully, deeply, and immediately as often as you can. When the emotions get clogged up, it's like a dam that just where water just backs up, and then you feel like you can't express any of it because there's such a huge burst of water that's going to come out. So rather than bottling all your emotions up, like play emotional hot potato with the people around you. Like you get angry, you pass it to the person next to you. And then that person, they get, they're angry, they pass it to someone else, and eventually the potato cools off. Like you don't have to, like we're meant to diffuse emotions into the people around us, and they're meant to diffuse emotions into us. Like it's a sharing of meaning, it's a sharing of vitality. So if you get to the point where you have so much emotion that you can't play hot potato, that's a great time to diffuse that in therapy, because the therapist can handle it, like they're trained to. I wish we could talk about rational, but we'll skip that because we're at the end here. I'll put my slides out somewhere. So there's just a little summary. So we're created for attachment. It's good to know our fallen self. It's possible to flourish in this life and have eternal beatitude in the next. We are interpersonally relational. We seek social engagement and need social engagement. To grow in virtue, you need voluntary, measured exposure to adversity. And vocation is Christ's hero journey applied to your life. We need to develop balanced thoughts so we can get to that. Emotionally, it's good to express fully, deeply, and honestly, instantly. And we're volitional and free, so we need meaning, responsibility, suffering, and anxiety to be fully ourselves. And last, the story you tell colors your experience. So tell a story worth telling, and and who knows how good you can become. All right, that's all I got. Maybe we can just take a few moments if you have any questions. I'll just answer a few questions and we'll wrap up, so we're respecting time. But anybody have thoughts or questions or slides you want to go back to? Yes.
Do you think some people need therapy in order to become a saint? Because if a saint is, I guess, the fullest version of a person, then would some people require the need of like a psychological help to achieve that? Which I guess saint refers to like holiness, but also, doesn't that also refer to some kind of psychological well-being? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think that God can use anything to work through, but He's not bound by therapy. Like you don't have to go to therapy to be holy. With that said, I think that it's that's what I'd say, like on a theological level. On a very human level, there's some people that might be so stuck in a particular issue or have some predisposition where they're probably not going to be able to break out of that until they go to therapy. So it's kind of both and again. But like God can use anything to work and on a human level, like maybe we do need therapy. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Would you or could you summarize your talk on reflecting on the quote by Saint Irenaeus, "The glory of God is man fully alive."
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good definition of flourishing. Yeah. So the glory of God is man fully alive. Love that quote. I think that God wants us to be flourishing, and God wants us to be holy. And as hard as this life is, it's not just to like drag us down and make us languish. Like languishing is what happens when we don't have that top-down, bottom-up integration between the layers. So yeah, like God enjoys good baklava, right? so let's come to Him as people who can be a feast to Him when we get to heaven. We can share in this banquet. Like that's being fully alive. It's not just like the only factor in human relationships isn't power, like a lot of people would say. It isn't competition. An evolutionary science would say it's all competition. It's symbiosis. It's sitting down to a meal together. It's being fully engaged. Like we were talking about blue zones before. It's all about living. So love that. Yeah.
I'm sort of surprised that in the end you said this, where you have an emotion, throw it out there, and hot potatoes all over the place. In my experience, they often get hotter. And they to explode. So what happened to count till 10?
Yeah.
How does that, I mean...
Yeah, well think about it this way. If a lot of people get stuck where they think, okay, I have to withhold my emotions from other people because if I express them, then it's going to hurt them. And so I wind up bottling up more and more emotion until it becomes this dam that breaks when I don't have control over it. Yeah. And so I have kind of explosive anger. Maybe I seek sex, substances, thrill, like things that temporarily balance my nervous system. But the thing that's going to ultimately balance my nervous system is getting it all out there in front of other people in a measured, voluntary way. So you can still withhold some emotion, but express emotion in a measured way. Like express as much as the other people can take, and then you mirror it back, and eventually, like it just kind of sifts down. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it sounds a little different from express it immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the best case scenario. Is like if everyone's regulated enough that if one individual in the system is unregulated, the system can diffuse it. Yeah. So
the analogy of the hike, like if you have a cut or something on your foot and you're hiking with a group and you don't say anything early on because you're like, oh, it's just a cut, it's just a stubbed toe, but then your whole group gets 10 hours into the hike and suddenly you can't walk.
Yep.
And then you can imagine that.
It's a lot more obvious when you're in the wilderness and someone has a problem. Like you need to know that information immediately, so that other people can help fix it before it gets worse. But when we're in society and we don't have to walk long distances or contend with the elements, it's a lot easier to hide our emotions in our wounds. Yeah.
I think too, it's very hard for humans to understand somebody who has a different emotion than they have. Like your example of the same incident, the same behavior, whatever, the same event. Two people can witness it and have completely different responses to it. It's been my experience that it's very hard for someone to acknowledge that my experience is different than theirs.
Yeah.
And then they try to tell me that I'm not experiencing what I'm experiencing. Or what I'm experiencing, if I'm the stable person in the relationship, is freaking out the other person.
Right.
And they freak out because I'm not stable anymore.
Yeah.
And so, for those of us who've been married for over 30 years, I think it might be harder to play the hot potato thing because we have developed patterns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but for me, what's been helpful is a lot of journaling has really helped me to become more, and I'm in therapy right now, and there's this great tool, the therapy wheel. I'm sure you know what it is, but it has the for emotion, like, you know, sadness, happiness, and then coming out is different colors, and each level, there's like different versions of that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I have a huge grief issue, and so I went through sadness, and I went all the way out, and really what I'm experiencing is heartbrokenness.
Yep.
And when my therapist said to me, you need to experience that, it's really hard.
It is, yeah.
And I need people to experience it, help me experience it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people to see me in that state or to see people in that state. And so I think a big part of this is, for me, with my own personal experience, and I'm not good at it either. I'm not good at, you know, I'm not good at doing it for other people either. Is to be able to be able to be in the presence of a strong emotion and not try and fix it and not try and make it go away.
Yeah.
To just, I use the term what Paul talks about all the time. One of the biggest things in all of his letters is one of the biggest things as Christians that we can do for each other is to bear each other's burdens.
Yep.
And I don't think we do that.
Right. We get pretty individualistic sometimes, don't we? Whether it's in our marriages or as friends and family. And I think that you know, there's a program that was developed. I don't know what state it was developed in, but it's called Witness to Love. And so I think that they did a really good job of setting this up. But basically they said, okay, we know the couples struggle and that divorce is a ridiculously high rate in the United States. And what if we were to take couples and match them up with a stronger, wiser other mentor couple? So basically like a secure attachment for a couple relationship. And they reduced the divorce rate to 5%. And people started going back to church, and like they not only felt better as a couple, they started inviting other people into their relationships. And it's like, that's, so coming back to that secure attachment, when the system that you're embedded in, couple, family, individual, is overwhelmed and you're not capable of being there for each other, it's time to call in a stronger, wiser other to be there with you, to be that wise guide so that you don't wind up mired in hell. Just like Dante going through the Inferno. So that's what I would suggest. Like, get resourced with someone you trust, and that's one of the best ways you can heal. All right, maybe one more question? Yeah.
What was that you said during the regulating? You said stop, digest. What were the steps?
Yeah, rest and digest.
Rest and digest.
Feed and breed. Yeah.
Feed and breed.
Breed. Yeah, like reproduce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
So
creativity too.
Creativity too. Yeah.
Yeah, generation probably, or being generative.
Yeah, generative, creative,
Yeah.
Artistic. Yeah, it's like our sympathetic nervous system upregulates us, and our parasympathetic nervous system downregulates us. When we're both upregulated and downregulated at the same time, like we're in a play state or like a leisure state, that's when we're in that optimum zone for resting, like recreating, digesting, eating, and being creative. So like if we're able to be like right on the edge where, oh, we could mess up and fall. Like think of like a Olympic snowboarder. Like they're right in the edge of catastrophe at any given moment. But if they're able to keep the tension, then they just like they hit it. They land that flip. Like I don't even know the terminology, but that's like when we're at our finest, we're playing. And so engage, like just have more fun together. Like enough of all this debate and arguing and fighting and shooting each other. So,
Snowboard.
all right, well, that's all I got. Thanks everyone.